Welcome everyone to episode 136 of Just Joshing. I am your host, Joshua Panteloresco. I write stuff and podcast too, and this is part 3 and the final part of my conversation with Tim Reynolds. I think the last thing I'm going to mention about Tim here, and it's really cool, is he has a really good funds for his own family history, and I got to tour his house after the show, and it was incredible. I got to see some of his family heirlooms. I got to see some of the stuff he acquired through research, and just some really cool moments. Like I said, I was really impressed just how thorough it was, and he was actually talking to me about like my future and some of the things I'm working towards. And one of the things we were talking about was house. I never considered myself a big house guy here. I look at the cost of a house here, and I kind of think it's absurd. I know this too. I'm not ready to go for the house just yet. I have a couple other things I need to do before I get to that point. But he was really thoughtful, and he added a lot of depth to the conversation. And like I say, he's got me thinking. Like all good comedians do at the end of the day, got me thinking. I would be remiss. You should check out anything Tim has done. Waking Anesthesia is an amazing book by Taiki. I can't wait to see what he comes up with next. And I just want to close by saying, Tim, thank you very much for being a part of my podcast. You rock. You're welcome to come back anytime you like. Okay? Let's conclude our conversation with Tim Reynolds here. We are very...
All right, now we're talking about men's butts.
Yeah,
okay.
I know.
Naked men's butts. Okay.
Yeah, I know.
Well, what was the movie that has an extremely graphic scene, but one of the best fight scenes ever choreographed? And it was, I'm completely blanking. Aragorn.
Yeah. Aragorn and...
Who's the actor that plays Aragorn?
Oh, jeez. Viggo Mortensen?
Yes, Viggo. When he's up against the Russian mob movie where the two guys are fighting naked in the steam room of the private club, I think it was. And I can't remember the name of the movie. But it's one of those where it's just brutal as they're slipping and sliding. And it's two naked men
trying to kill each other.
And there is nothing sexual about that scene.
No. It's
one of those where it's every guy's best and worst nightmare.
Yeah.
Best that you're going to win and kill the guy, but worst in is I don't have a weapon and he's going to grab me by that.
Well, that, and it's also, and also on top of that, it's slippery as heck because you're wet.
The whole.
That's that. I mean, logistically speaking, that's actually a really tough place to actually go into a fight because it's just.
They did it so well. They used that as a factor. But,
that's.
But then again, if that was two women fighting, it would get more hits on the internet.
No, absolutely. Because
then because women watch that and go, wow, look at Viggo go, but they can admire the male bodies, but it's still a fight scene. But as soon as men start watching women fighting, men are sick and broken and twisted.
Absolutely.
Most of us, we're going to look at that and we're not going to see a fight scene. We're going to see all the things that women don't want us to actually be thinking about when two women are trying to kill each other.
Yes.
You're supposed to be cheering on the heroine, not going, hey, man, would I like to... I'm not going to fill in the blank because that's...
It's obvious.
Yeah, well, that and men are just...
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. I've learned also women have their own version of that crazy too. I actually just got into a conversation with an author friend of mine. When men fight to neutralize. When women fight to annihilate. It's actually scary to watch a woman fight.
Oh, so, no, yeah, I've seen them and almost had to step into. I used to be a bartender, but some fights. The reason. What is the reason for fighting? That's the other thing. Is you've got to. What are these people fighting about?
Yeah.
It's usually it's self-defense, and we have to look at this with our characters. What's the goal? Are you trying to defend yourself from an attack? Are you trying to? Are you trying to kill the enemy?
Yeah.
Whether you're on the good side or the bad side. Are you trying to humiliate them?
Are you trying?
Which is where most of your bar fights come. Is the guerrilla chest pounding. My pride's and pride is the. They talk about deadly sins. Pride has caused more damage than any of them in terms of what men are capable of doing. And women, I'm sure, but I can only speak from the viewpoint of as a man, of the stupid things we do
Absolutely.
out of pride. And sometimes they're just like a skateboard stunt that goes wrong, and you hit your boy parts, and then your junk gets slammed into a railing, and you're going, okay, I'm not so proud anymore.
I'm not so proud.
But if you do the stunt, you're proud because suddenly you're an internet hero.
Yeah.
But these guys who, you look at them the wrong way in a pool hall, and well, if he doesn't stand up to you, then his buddies are going to laugh at him, and his pride. I'm sorry, but really, I don't have my glasses on. I wasn't looking at you. I was trying to read the label on the bottle or whatever. But men and pride are just
actually,
it's like steel nuts on the back of a pickup.
No, really. So it's really funny. I almost got into a fight at a bus stop. I talked to myself because again, I'm always got characters in my head. The guy beside me got really uncomfortable with that, right? So but I wasn't actually looking at him, or like it drove him nuts because I wasn't like trying to pick a fight. I wasn't looking at him. I wasn't doing any of those things. I was just
tuned him out.
Yeah, I tuned him completely out. So he got flustered. Like he was completely. You want to go? Just say something next time. What? He's going off in a huff now because it's like, and I'm like, what did I do? And I'm like, wait, I just was talking to myself about some things. Right, but again, it's just one of those things.
Exactly.
Right, it happens. The other thing about fight scenes is sometimes it's not even like about any of those reasons. I equate it to the concept that fighting is a language, and sometimes
or a dance.
Or a dance.
I have a background in dance from when I was in theater, and that's when I write a fight scene, I choreograph the fight scene, and as they do in Hollywood. But in The Broken Shield, my first novel, there's a scene in it in London, England, where the hero in the particular scene is a gay East Indian. Now he's over 2,000 years old, been reincarnated so many times, which is the essence of the book and the various characters. And in his gym bag, he's got these 2 Filipino blades, but it's 6 London street thugs that try to take him out, because they're part of Lucifer's team, actually. Lucifer's the big bad guy in the novel. And instead of saying, and all I did is I visualized this. Okay, he's gonna duck down, swing out, push here, jump there, fall back here, and in the whole thing, I actually had to walk it out in my head how he's going to take out 6 guys very quickly.
See, for me, my model for it, believe it or not, is old, like 1980s pro wrestling. And the reason why I use that particular era is everything they did in the ring had a reason. Like they're like it wasn't always obvious, but when you first saw it. But like one of my favorite wrestlers is Jake St. Roberts. He had a DDT as his finisher, and the logic for him was really simple. He has a knockout punch.
Right.
So everything he does
had to lead up
to the knockout punch.
Oh, yeah, they all had their signature move.
That's what right.
The sleeper, the knockout, flying.
But again, looking at it just in terms of a fight, right?
Yeah.
You have a knockout punch. Everything you do in that, what you do is going to lead to that knockout punch. Right?
Yes, exactly. When you're writing a fight scene, you have to know where it's going to end.
Yeah, exactly.
Who's still standing and who is.
And that's the story of every fight scene. What's the end goal here? If the end goal is this guy beats this guy, and is he a bad guy? Well, yes. How do you win? Well, this guy was busted up in the arm and shoulder, so it makes sense then that the bad guy is going to go after that arm and shoulder, right? Yeah. Right, and there's just like a logic. There is actually a really sound logic to fighting, right? In terms of telling a story. Real fights don't make anywhere close to the same amount of sense.
Sometimes. Oh no, it's Well, look the most famous non-fight scene in film history, Indiana Jones.
Yeah, the gun
with the where he takes it. He's reaching for the whip, and the big fella in black with the sword swinging it back and forth, and Indy just shoots him in the chest. You know how that came about?
He broke. He broke.
Well, they'd filmed it over and over again, and finally they had to, let's take number whatever, and Harrison Ford was just so fed up, he just reached into his holster, pulled the trigger, and boom. And they said, that's it, because what was his goal in the fight scene was not to win the fight.
No.
His goal was to get himself out of that situation so that he could chase after Marion.
Yeah.
And shooting the guy was just boom, done, and then go.
It's quicker.
And that's when you see these film, television, or books where the fight goes on and on and on. You're going, really, what's the point? Your goal is to stop the bad guys and stop the bomb. So why are you punching them when you could be stabbing them, shooting them, breaking their necks? And you see bad guys who, what's the big fight scene where it was just depressed me? Was Netflix The Defenders that just came out?
I haven't seen it, so
there's a fight scene in it where there are gifted humans up against non-gifted humans, and in terms of powers, and you're just going, well, why aren't they doing this and this and this? And it's just like, we need a 5-minute fight scene. I mean, Hollywood's.
I'll give you actually my favorite examples of fight scenes.
Yeah.
Vader versus Obi-Wan, both times. The first time in A New Hope, technically speaking, not very good, but it's a much more interesting story than when Obi-Wan fought Anakin in The Revenge of the Sith. The Revenge of the Sith fight is longer, technically a very proficient fight, but the story had to be Obi-Wan wins. So the only way you could really have made that fight interesting is Obi-Wan being reluctant to fight him. That's the only story, really.
Yeah.
All right. So if that's the story, then Anakin should be the aggressor. Obi-Wan should just be really defensive.
Right.
Not trying to be just try to reason with the friend and failing. This friend's just too far gone, and finally just getting the nerve to finally strike. And that's all that fight should have been. Instead, you got this 40-some-odd minute.
Well, you're also talking about a George Lucas movie, and I'm not going to criticize George, but he once said that he wrote the Star Wars movies for 12-year-olds, and that was the adventure he wanted. And you watch the first 3 that came out, not in the episodes 4, 5, and 6. That's what they look like. They've got that Saturday morning serial, the Indiana Jones, the Star Wars, all that they've got that same feel. Now, the problem is, and I'll use J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series as a comparison. She wrote Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone for 12-year-olds as well. But the difference is she wrote her stories and she had the characters evolve as her readers did.
Yes.
Whereas George's problem, I think, was that he didn't have his stories evolve. He didn't have his stories mature.
Yeah.
He kept the same thing. So by the time you got to movie 6, you're going, okay, the Reedy or whichever one, Jar Jar was in what, 3 or 4? Fourth movie?
Yeah.
Episode 1?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, yes, because it was Anakin. It was young Anakin. I don't hate Jar Jar. I'm not like the rest of the world. But it was an immature comic relief that probably went too far.
Yeah.
George was still writing for 12-year-olds.
Yes.
And I think that's a big problem. And so the action scenes all that were written for 12-year-olds watching this, not assuming that those 12-year-olds were now 40 and 50-year-olds.
Well, the thing is, the other thing too is the first 3 films. There's a language to the cinema. There still is a very big, strong language there. Yeah. Yes, it's for kids, but right, I can still watch episodes 4, 5, and 6 and enjoy them because there are some really smart things that are done, especially in 4 and 5.
Well, he wasn't that far off.
Yeah.
Well, he was still early enough in his career that he remembered film school.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. THX 1138, I think, was his first movie.
Yeah.
I may have the numbers wrong, or maybe T8. No. But American Graffiti.
Yeah.
Which is my favorite George movie. He was still early enough in his career that when he envisioned it, and I think if George had been allowed if he had been allowed to follow his plan and do 9 movies 3 years apart, and just go straight through, that he probably would have had a more coherent trilogy. But then again, we don't know all that went on behind the scenes and why various stuff happened, and sometimes it was casting.
Yeah.
The stories aren't bad. The world decided they didn't like Christian as Anakin. Whether he's a good actor or a bad actor, I'm not going to say. I've seen him in stuff that I enjoyed him in, but some people just did not take to this young man playing that role. And I think that the Trolls did a lot of damage to George's movies too.
Absolutely.
People saying Jar Jar was stupid. That's bad casting for Anakin. And I can't remember what the third one. There was something in there, and that they were very loud voices that tainted what the rest of us were enjoying.
Yeah.
Because I can watch all those movies and I don't mind them. There's some silly stuff in there, but some if you know you're going to watch silly, you can sit back and go, okay.
To be fair,
it's not Wonder Woman. It's Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah. Well,
or whatever.
Wonder Woman was actually a really good movie.
That's what I mean. There's a serious. They're both the same genre, but one a very serious movie like that.
Yeah.
The World War I scenes when she's in the walking through the trenches. My grandfather was there.
Yeah.
And so
I actually thought that movie was really well done. They did see. I love the first Captain America movie because they did the same thing with her they did with Captain America. They were smart. They're like, you know what? She has a really intriguing history. Why don't we divide it in pieces so we can educate the audience as she evolves? And I'm like, that made so much. I love Captain America is my favorite of all the actual Marvel series because they were really smart enough. They were smart enough. Put him in where they were smart enough to show him where he came from. So you had an idea where
his
he came.
His origin story is interesting and has enough historical fact that you can understand how.
Yeah. And then when he comes into today, like Captain America 2 is, I think, better than 1. But one of the reasons why is because you had 1 to give you a real good sense of who he was.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. And so when he came to our world in 2, it's like, okay, this is incredible.
This is the world. This is a 1940s man trying to succeed, trying to survive and figure out our world. And
it was really good. 3 is not. I like Civil War as a movie. I wish that had been Avengers 2, to be perfectly honest with you. Not Captain America 3, but it's still pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, I like that series because it's really something. And Wonder Woman's got that kind of potential. Because she's technically an immortal, like.
Well, if you don't own it and you can get your hands on the Batman versus Superman DVD or Blu-ray.
Yeah.
There's a special feature on it, which is the history of Wonder Woman in Western media and where she came from and how much the comic and then the TV series means to the women's movement.
Yeah.
And that's when I used to watch Wonder Woman because I had a crush on Linda Carter.
Yep.
I grew up in the 70s, 60s, 70s. So that stuff, I didn't find, the superhero stuff I really wasn't watching on TV much.
No.
I thought it was cheesy, to be honest.
Well,
when I saw this feature on Wonder Woman, I suddenly realized there was much more depth to her because I'm not a comic book reader.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know her full history, but also what she has meant to young and old women who are now no longer young. And I'm going, now there's a story. And when I saw the movie, how they had taken what they had put on the extra.
Yeah.
Well, that's really what it was. Is the extra on the Batman versus Superman is kind of like the pitch for the story of Wonder Woman the movie, and they used clips from it in.
They actually, I thought that movie, like, okay, so my personal, I do collect Wonder Woman from time to time. When she's good, she's really good. When she's bad, like she's not Batman where she's so elastic she can put her in everything.
Right.
But when you are on like that wavelength with her, there's some really good stories you can tell with her, and I was like, my big concern was I was really worried when I watched it would be too much like Hollywood's history with like I'm going to bring this example, Halle Bailey's Catwoman. That wasn't.
I have not seen that one.
Don't.
I will watch a movie that others say is bad. Well, what did I just see that got trashed by all my friends? The new Stephen King one, not it.
Dark Tower.
Dark Tower, because I've not read the books and did not know any graphic novels or anything that's come from that. I enjoyed it and I watched it and I enjoyed it because I was going in knowing only what you see in a preview, and even then I stopped watching the previews, like as they came out with new trailers, because I didn't want to know too much, and I enjoyed it. It was a simple story. Whether they took elements from different books and brought it in and put it in the wrong order, because I wasn't a fanboy, I didn't care.
No, the reason I said that is because, again, Catwoman was a very bad depiction of her as a character.
I'll watch it just to see how bad it was.
It's bad.
I'll probably cringe.
It is, but Wonder Woman was like, this is really good. Like, I was like, it was a bit, like, it was perfect for a first movie. It had a really very solid premise. She was a really, like, you believed her as Wonder Woman. Like, she was believable
Well,
on screen.
I'd love to see the future. I'd love to see at least one of the future Wonder Woman movies where she's more of a James Bond character than so that the Diana Prince character is as strong or stronger than Wonder Woman, where because what she was doing with the undercover stuff with Bruce Wayne, I thought was wonderful. Like that whole dance with between Gal and Ben in Lex's. We won't get into Lex. That was not well cast.
No.
But in that whole scene, I thought that was terrific, and the fact that she's got a superpower or superpowers. I find, because I'm very much into. If you gave me a choice between watching a good spy movie and a good superhero movie, I'm going to pick the spy movie.
Yeah.
I just binge watched all 5 Mission Impossible films.
Damn.
And the extras.
Holy crap!
Which is gets into the stunts and all that stuff. And but I like Tom Cruise. Some of your listeners may not. And they're going, "Oh my God!" Blah 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 blah. Yeah, whatever. Exactly. Nobody's gonna be a fan of everything.
Yeah.
But Gal Gadot plays Diana Prince as well as she plays Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
And I think that is that's a big thing. Is your especially with the characters with the dichotomy with the secret identity and the not. They need to play.
Mm-hmm.
Who was it that said it best with Superman? Was Dean Cain's character Superman, and he said Clark is because Christopher Reeves played Superman. When he was Clark Kent. He put on the glasses and became this nerdy, nebbish guy. And,
yes.
And when he took off the glasses, he came out, he was Superman. He was all this powerful. Dean Cain played him the opposite.
Yes.
Dean Cain says, Clark is who I am. Superman is what I do. And that's what I think Gal brings to it, is you're seeing that you saw a Diana Prince. That you don't care if she's got superpowers. She was fun to watch.
Absolutely.
In that emotional and intellectual dance with Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
And you could watch that without all of the fancy, the armor and the swords and the lasso. Because it was she did such a good job.
The thing is, Gal is, like, this is how I looked at it. Gal is Wonder Woman, regardless of whether she's Diana Prince or not. Yeah. The two characters aren't that different. And
no, exactly.
Right. Yes. And that's I can't remember, the 1950s Superman is my favorite. Yes. Clark Kent.
Yes.
Because the thing was, he was smart enough in the fact that Clark was in on, he was in on his own joke, right? And I thought that was smart. That's the only thing I don't like about Christopher Reeve, is I don't like his Clark Kent. I love his Superman.
Exactly. No. Yeah. But his Clark Kent was perfect for the era the movies were.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I actually just bought that series that I'm going to sit, because I've never seen the last one. And it gets so badly trashed and panned that I'm going to have to watch it.
It's right.
I think he directed it or wrote it. I can't remember.
I will say this. The one speech he made about nuclear arms is awesome.
They say that's the only reason to watch that movie.
It is amazing. It is actually very powerful.
But if you look at the failure of Man of Steel,
mm-hmm.
I think part of the problem is that they did not make Clark. Like, Superman is, the whole battling of Zod back and forth and destroying buildings, that was so counter to the Superman we've grown up and loved. Maybe some of the comics have done that. But I didn't get a sense of the Clark bit. The best part in that movie was Kevin Costner as Dad.
Yeah, and
stay. Yeah. Keep your mother safe. I love you, and... the dog's gotten away.
And the thing is, I didn't care for Costner that much either. It's just he does a bad part of the movie. My thing is, with Superman, he should either be one of two things. He should be fun, because the thing is, he's a kid. If we were thinking about it, Superman is a kid's imaginary, it's an imagination. It's a kid's imagination. So play to that, right? Because or the other option is, he's a farm boy from Kansas with a heart of gold. Those are the only really two ways you could really play with him. Superman should not be a dark character. He just shouldn't.
No, I mean, they've done it in the comics, but I think that was a bad choice for the direction. And I realize that the times are dark, and quite often Hollywood reflects the times we're going through. But there were a whole, that movie was years of decisions. But I've actually met two of the Supermans. I've met Christopher Reeve and photographed him, and I met Brandon Routh.
Ralph's a fun dude.
I met him, and when I met him, I was at the Comic Expo, of course, and I didn't realize how tall he was in person. I'm looking up, going, "Holy crap!" And I thought he did even though the movie was not a huge success, I thought he did a wonderful job of continuing Superman in the Christopher Reeve vein.
Absolutely.
And I just looked at him and I said, I thought what you did was great. And he looked at me like nobody'd ever said something nice about his Superman. And I think that Henry Cavill could be. I think he's a good enough actor, especially after seeing him in Man from U.N.C.L.E., that he could be a great Superman.
Absolutely.
In the right vehicle. And I think Ben Affleck is one of the best Bruce Waynes that we've seen. But if you look at all those Batman movies, every one of those actors, Val Kilmer, George Clooney, Michael Keaton. Well, Keaton got the two best movies of those four. But people trash George and Val for being bad Batmans. No, they were Batmans and Bruce Waynes in bad movies.
Yes.
Either one of those actors could have nailed that role if they'd given them Christopher Bale scripts.
Yes.
Both of those actors
absolutely
would have done wonderful. And I think now that Ben Affleck is. I think he was probably the best part of the Batman versus Superman film.
Yes.
Was his aging Superman. Well, of course, with Alfred, that was a great counterpoint, but we didn't get enough of that humor. And says, well, you're not young anymore, and lines like that, and I guess he's now, well, Ben's now older than Batman was. There was some line in there about aging.
Because they went closer to like The Dark Knight Returns, which is a really great Batman story where Batman's an older man. Still like compared to most men his age, like he's still a badass, but again, he's not young anymore. So
yeah,
so he had to re-envision how Batman did things, which I think is a really neat thing. My only thing, again, I'm a little concerned about him as Batman, but the only reason I say that is because I haven't seen enough of when they put him on the streets patrolling against somebody that he would normally fight.
Right.
How is he gonna be? Because that's my only real question about him. As Bruce Wayne, I have no questions. Right?
Yeah.
That's just like, you'd be good there. I'm not so sure about here. That's because you haven't been given the opportunity yet. So
yeah, it's tough when you start getting your superheroes that are now everybody knows, maybe not their secret identity, but all of a sudden they're in the news everywhere. You don't get those subtle things like you do with the Spider-Man movies.
Yeah.
Not even the latest one is terrific. A wonderful origin story, but even the one before, with Andrew playing Spider-Man, how he was Dennis Leary's police chief, wanting to catch him, wanting to stop him, because here's this vigilante, and that I think that's the way to go with like Superman being the bad guy, at least in some people's eyes. Yeah, that was great, but I think the Batman versus Superman. That idea had been around so long that we want to make this movie. Because people wanted to film the fight scene and who would win, and it just got so stuck in the people who owned the rights in their heads that they felt they just had to make that movie. And I think that was a bad choice.
Absolutely.
For a film but maybe that's, I don't know comic books. I didn't read a lot of them when I was younger.
DC is in theory. Now it's more or less why right this minute than it was than it was 2 years ago. But right this minute, DC's more lighthearted, right? And Marvel right now in the comics has gone the other way, which is, Marvel's not very good right now. DC's a lot more fun to read, and I'm saying that just as a comic fan. But again, Superman's a lot more lighthearted. They gave him a son, like he's married and he has a son. Superman as a dad is actually really good. Like it fits him to a T. Batman, they've even lightened up Batman a little bit. Not completely, but the idea that Batman could actually seek happiness and still be Batman, that's something that hasn't been touched upon really in the last 20 years.
The end of the Christian Bale movies.
Yeah.
With Bruce and Selena.
Yeah.
I thought that was a wonderful.
Absolutely. No, it makes total sense.
Although my favorite villains in all comic book films are still Danny DeVito and Michelle Pfeiffer in the second Batman movie.
That's an interesting choice.
Because it's not the best movie.
No.
I found the whole Shrek or the Christopher Walken character, I thought that was a little off. But you understood what broke those two human beings,
yeah,
and made them the villains they became.
Yes.
Because to me, there's nothing worse than a villain you cannot empathize with. Because then you go back and forth going, well, no wonder he's doing that, or no wonder she's doing that. Because Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman wasn't just sexy. She was human.
Absolutely.
She wasn't just there as a sex symbol. She was there as maybe a symbol of broken women that have been abused by men or by society. And one of the worst villains in one of the most popular movies is the new Mad Max.
Yeah.
The bad guy in that, I had no feelings whatsoever. Just all he was embodiment of evil. You got the backstory with Charlize's character. You got some with Max himself, but you had no idea who this twisted, deformed guy was. I mean, little hints here and there, but if they'd given him a little bit of backstory, given us 5 minutes of him, I think that movie would have...
Or just a really human moment. Like, I agree with you. But empathy is required with a villain, right? Even you have to, on some level, because the thing about a villain is a villain can be justified with anything they do, right? And as long as they're in their own heads, they're right. What you as an author have to do in the case of a villain, right, is you have to make sure that villain, like, you understand what's going on with that villain's head. Like, why? Like, my current story, my villain is trying to buy his daughter a pony because she wants a pony. And again, it's a comedic take, and he's doing some really terrible things to achieve. But for him, it's about taking care of his daughter, right?
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Well, in The Broken Shield,
yeah,
which covers 2,000 years worth of history, and the villain in it is, although he doesn't appear a lot in it, is Lucifer, and all the bad guys work for Lucifer. But writing the Lucifer scenes was really interesting because I wrote him as a corporate individual, and he was trying to, in the one scene, he's trying to acquire Facebook.
That's awesome.
And because he wants to mine the data that comes from it, because then he can use that to manipulate society and human beings. And his people the person he said, where are we on acquiring Facebook? He says, well, that Weisenheimer doesn't want to give it up. And he says, he's got almost as much money as you. And he says, he doesn't need money. He says, well, then find a way to get it without money. And because my particular story is about the idea that the good guys are protecting, and have been for thousands of years, items such as the Holy Grail and Buddha's Pebble and the last egg of Loch Ness, Charlemagne's sword, all of these things that are filled with joy, that need to be out in society without being seen. So these people have to carry these things with them. They have to live with these things. But the bad guys are trying to find them so they can acquire them and take the items out of circulation. Because while those items are out there, the love, the joy, the hope spreads from them. Just as you're walking down the street and you suddenly have this feeling of joy wash over you. My theory is that somebody just walked by with the Holy Grail in his wooden leg kind of thing, and you're feeling the joy. And I use a lot of mythologies. I'm not saying that the Grail was a true story or not, but I use Loch Ness. Well, it's an urban fantasy.
Yeah. My
final battle scene is 24 SWAT team military mercenaries up against trolls, dwarves, and
that's awesome.
And a Bigfoot in Banff, Alberta. I have the battle scene actually just outside of Banff in Bankhead, which is a ghost town.
Yes.
And I have teleportation and I have magic. One of the characters is a pixie princess, and a bounty hunter from Fairy has come after her. So I'm mixing everything up there. But the Lucifer scenes, his goal is to create a massive computer that can analyze all the surveillance data from around the planet at such a high speed and look for the characteristics that the heroes have shown in their 2,000 years of multiple lives, because their whole goal is to live a life without being repetitive. And we don't realize how much we repeat in our life. Like if you walk to the grocery store the same route every day,
absolutely,
you suddenly got a pattern. If you always buy the same loaf of bread, pattern. So they have to break the pattern, but not break it so far that the no pattern shows up. So if the computer's analyzing an individual at individuals at high speed, and there's one person who never takes the same route to the grocery store twice, the computer will see that. So they're trying to come up with a software, with a massive computer to do that, and track the good guys, and then the SALT teams go in, et cetera, et cetera. But but Lucifer was simply a businessman.
Yeah.
And the people under him were looking to survive working for the ultimate bad guy, but also some of them had wives and kids that they were trying to support, and they just happened to have picked the company that said, guess what? Sell your soul and we will give you every one of your dreams. And a few of them realize that they've made the wrong choice. And the good guys in this are all Zen Buddhist types. And a lot of ancient Chinese philosophy, and a lot of it made up.
Yeah.
Like one of the characters, he not only wrote Beowulf, but he did the Rosetta Stone. That's how long he's been around. That he's been throughout history. He was on the grassy knoll in 1963 at Dealey Plaza, standing next to some unknown gunman, kind of thing. And so he's always been there.
Yeah. Very cool.
But you're right. It's writing the villains if you don't give them. You make them relatable.
Yeah.
Whether it's empathy or not, you have to say, okay, I know somebody like that. Whereas the Mad Max example, I just thought, like, even Tina Turner in Mad Max Thunderdome.
Yeah.
She was a showwoman. She had this thing she was providing for her people. This guy was he was worse than, I was going to say Boba Fett, but no, Star Wars, big fat guy.
Oh, Jabba the Hutt.
Jabba the Hutt. That's all that guy was. He was just another version of Jabba the Hutt, and I think those evils are not near. Well, Winter Soldier is a great example.
Yeah,
where your good guys are your bad guys, are your good guys are your bad guys. And
I think okay, so you can make them completely inhuman, but at that point you have to make them almost like a force of nature. It's like the Joker is the ultimate example of this, because the Joker, as a human being, I have no connection to this man whatsoever. However, I'm terrified of this man because I have no idea what he'll do next. He's a force of nature, not necessarily a human being anymore. And that's the only way to do that character like that.
Well, I don't know, did you read the theory or see the theory who the Joker is?
No, I haven't.
There was one, and it came out a little while ago, and hopefully I'm remembering it accurately, where Bruce Wayne was given an opportunity or Batman was given an opportunity to travel in time and to go back and change something, and it turns out that the Joker was Batman.
Yeah.
That he had to. I know what it was. There was an existential threat to mankind, and if Batman didn't exist, then mankind would be wiped out. And Bruce Wayne was given it says, will you save mankind? Will you make the ultimate sacrifice? And he says, I'll do what I have to. So they take him back, and an older Bruce Wayne is the man who kills the Wayne parents and creates himself as Batman. Giant.
Yes.
But the modern one, the older one, the thief we see in the alleyway in the movies,
snaps.
He snaps and becomes the Joker.
That's interesting.
So Bruce Wayne is fighting Bruce Wayne. One is the mentally broken.
That's interesting.
And I just thought that was such a wild.
It's wild. It might. Who knows, right? I mean, but
it's a fun route. It's a fun twist.
Yes.
Like Captain America, really as a Hydra agent. Or something like that.
Yeah.
I want to see where they go with that. I've only heard little bits and pieces.
You don't want to know. It's not. We're going back to our beginning. Politics do play a big role in that. We do, I think, have an incredible interview here. So,
okay. Yes. Yeah. You've got to get home before Monday work.
Yeah, exactly. So before we go,
yes,
tell people about your current book or what's coming up and how people can find you.
All right. TimReynolds.ca or TGMReynolds.com.
Yep.
You can find links to my current fiction. The newest novel out is Waking Anastasia, about a man who awakens the ghost of Anastasia Romanoff almost 100 years after her murder. She was a real person, which a lot of people have forgotten. And I did a lot of research into her own notes and photographs to create a character that people didn't know. She was a practical joker. She was a smoker. She was the smartest of the sisters, and she was an avid photographer. Anastasia was taking selfies in mirrors in 1908.
Awesome.
So it's not new. And she wasn't doing the duck face, fortunately. So I just simply crossed my family history. My grandfather was there in Russia. So I've created my character, Jerry. His great-grandfather was there and picked up something that happened to contain Anastasia's soul. And he awakens the ghost. So that's Waking Anastasia. It's sort of a paranormal romance is the description they give it, but it's not a romance. It's a love story about Jerry and his relationships to all the women, including his own mother. That's the newest one that's out. I have a steampunk fairy novel that I'm currently sitting with an agent.
Good luck.
Thank you. They're looking at that. And it's a quest, 6 goth young fairies who have their wings stripped and they still have to go and save their world.
That's awesome.
And a psychological thriller about a serial killer in Alberta.
Nice. And that will do it for this episode of Just Joshing. If you want to support the podcast, you can. You can do this a number of different ways. You can subscribe to the podcast either through iTunes or through Podomatic. If you do so, please leave a review. Tell me what you liked about the show, what you hate about the show. Just don't hate too loud, okay, guys? Because I'm sensitive and stuff. Actually, it really doesn't matter to me. Just leave a comment. Let me know what's going on. If you like what you're hearing, that'd be great. Beyond that, you could also buy my books. At this point, The Watcher, Storm Dancer, and The Wandering God are done. The series is complete. You can get them on Amazon. You can get them at mirrorworldpublishing.com. You can get them anywhere books are sold electronically. You can also ask your local chapters, Barnes & Noble or Amazon, to get them in stock. I would love if you did. If you hate the book, just don't tell anybody, okay? Okay. Beyond that, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is Joshua Penteloresco. Currently, past archived episodes of the podcast are there. More and more episodes are going there as we speak. Definitely should check that out and do what needs to be done. Above all else, though, whether you support me or you don't, thank you for listening. You should stay inspired. Do what you feel called to do. Don't be afraid to make the sacrifices required to find the success you're looking for. Because the real secret is, what are you willing to give up to go forward? That, more than anything else, I think determines how far you go. All right, guys, you take care of yourselves. All right, see you next time.
Josh.